Good morning, everyone. And yes, I am on the opposite side of the screen today as my man Johnny Lazarus is not here. He has taken a flight across the pond. I think he's in London right now. What he's doing in London, I have absolutely no idea. And no, Tyler, not London, Ontario. We're talking the United Kingdom, just in case you weren't sure, as my friend north of the border. So it's great to have Tyler Yaremchuk filling in today. And as always, this show is presented by Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. The show is also presented by Proraso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Proraso has been a staple of Italian culture, barbershops globally, and for 4 generations. You can get 15% off at Proraso-USA.com with promo code HOCKEY15. Okay, that was quite a mouthful. I guess I see why people like when Johnny do that every morning. Tyler, how are we this morning in the early hours of Western Canada?
I am good. It's supposed to snow today in Edmonton, so that's always disappointing when you get to this point of the year and we're still getting snow. I can't believe Johnny's just fucking off and going to London in the middle of the hockey season. Who's approving this guy's vacation time in the middle of the season? I'm pretty sure we were expressly told no vacations in the middle of the season.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this year I don't have a whole lot of room to chirp for missing shows, albeit I think my reasons were a little bit better, and you did fill in for me like a true teammate, which I am forever grateful for, Tyler. But yeah, I don't really know. I don't remember why Johnny said that he was going to London, and the minute he told me he wasn't doing today's show, I took him right out of the group chat and I started texting you and Vic. You know, next man up, right? It's a next man up mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. This will be show number 1, 2, 3. This will be show number 1 of 5 for me today. So giddy up.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me that you've come on our show that many times this week, which is always possible.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe this year.
So look, not a lot of hockey last night, and I did, get an opportunity to watch both of those games. Flyers get a big win and kind of keep themselves right in the race here for the wild card. Do I think they're a wild card team? No, but I mean, you can't say they're not in the race when they're only 3-4 points out of a playoff spot. They're kicking. They're still kicking.
No, they're 7 points out, and they would have to leapfrog both Ottawa and Columbus just to have a sniff at either Boston or Detroit. They're cooked. Put a fork in them. You know who's got a better shot at making the playoffs? The Winnipeg Jets, Colby. That's the train I'm on. Give me the Jets before you start talking Flyers out east. I think in the East, it's going to be one of Ottawa or Columbus, if anyone. I'm put a fork in Washington. They're cooked. I think Philly's cooked too. 7 points with under 20 games to go. It's too big of a gap in today's NHL.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at where the Columbus Blue Jackets were, and they're 5 points behind Columbus, but Columbus is still right on the wrong side of the cut line. And I do think Columbus has been definitely playing better than any of those teams consistently for a while. But you had that game. Ottawa doesn't get a win against Montreal, which they obviously needed pretty bad. But I don't think either of those games were, earth-shattering games. And one of the things that I wanted to do today, because we had a little bit more freedom, is I wanted to check in on the rebuild in Chicago. This is something that I was there for the beginning of. I think at times this year when Bedard was healthy, when Nazar was healthy, we were talking about Chicago as a potential playoff team. We have the San Jose Sharks that seem to be knocking on the door of the playoffs. It probably won't happen, but they're certainly hanging around. I would say that would be a fair comment for them. So I wanted to bring on an old friend of mine from Chicago. He's been on the show before, and talk to him a little bit about the rebuild that is going on in Chicago. And part of the reason, Tyler, is I wanted to bring on Barstool Chief was that he just had Kyle Davidson on his show for an in-person sit-down, which I think is always an opportunity to get such a better read on things, right? And Chief has been ride or die with this Chicago sports scene for, ever. And he's somebody that's not afraid to call it like it is, whether it's for good or for bad. If everybody's being negative, but he sees a positive, he doesn't mind going against the grain. If everybody sees a positive, he sees a negative, same thing, doesn't mind going against the grain. So let's bring on Barstool Chief and let's dive into this here a little bit. again, an early morning for you as well, being in the central time zone. So we're grateful.
Oh, I've been up, brother. I've been up.
He's at the office.
Yeah.
Well, his dog is an early riser. I know that. So the dog gets him out of bed nice and early. That I know.
Yeah, I've been up since 5, so we're good to go. I've had a good start to the day. So thanks for having me, boys. Happy to be here.
Yeah. What let's just start with your conversation with Kyle Davidson and what that was like, because it seems like the Blackhawks are doing a true rebuild where we see all these other organizations not doing true rebuilds. Like they're like, okay, we have a little bit of success, or we're calling it a retool, or we won't fully commit. I mean, the Flyers, the Rangers, like you see all these organizations that like they're not really fully committing to it. Then you have the Chicago Blackhawks. I was there when they really burnt this thing to the studs. And then ever since, it's been about rebuilding. And so when you sat down with Kyle, like, do you get the sense that this thing is nearing a turning point, or is it still, 4 years in or so, 5 years in, and it's still too early to really tell?
Yeah, it's officially it's a full presidential term because you got that job, the interim tag taken off. I think it was February of 22. So he's been there for 4 years. And like you said, like this rebuild really started because they didn't do it before. It was the Stan Bowman era was we're retooling, we're rebuilding, we're going for it. It's, we're trading at the deadline. Wait, no, we're getting Seth Jones. And it was kind of wishy-washy with no real plan. And then Kyle got the job. The cupboard was very bare. And it's like, look, we got Brandon Hagel. We got Patrick Kane. We don't have a ton of assets. Nothing of note in the pipeline. So they burned it down, and it was going to take a long time. And I do feel like the ship is turning, but it hasn't necessarily left the port yet.
I think, when it comes to rebuilds, and I consider myself a little bit of a rebuild connoisseur, if you will. I grew up an Oilers fan. I was born in 97. All I know is dog shit hockey and rebuilds, baby. And one thing that can get you in trouble, I find, is like sticking to definitive timelines. I think in 2015, Edmonton gets Connor McDavid and they go, we have to trade everything we got to make this next team so good. They trade for Reinhardt. It's brutal, all that. So with that being said, this feels like maybe the first summer where Kyle Davidson is maybe feeling some pressure to like make a big splash and accelerate this thing. And like, I know that can get you in trouble sometimes, but if Davidson does go that route, what's the right way for him to do it? What's the right area of this lineup for him to make a splash this summer?
Yeah, I think they definitely need top 6 help for Bedard. So they just don't have like a real running mate for him. They haven't really played him with Frank much. I'm not sure that that's a great fit. So they could use a power forward type. I kind of think it's going to end up being Anton Frondell. I know everyone's got him penciled in as like that second line two-way center, but his traits where he can protect the puck, he's good on the forecheck, he's got an absolute bomb of a shot, he finds like the soft areas. He might be like the perfect winger for Connor Bedard. So it could come from that, but I wouldn't turn my nose up at a potential, Matthew Nyes deal, or, if Brady Tkachuk rumors and his name hits the market. I think the Blackhawks now have the cap space, the prospect capital, the draft capital, with especially after this most recent deadline where they're getting a first and a second for Dickinson and Murphy, that they could be. Yeah, I know that was a Stan Bowman special. Thank you for that. And I think that they could be in a position to be aggressive if the right player became available. But if it's one of these things where it's like, hey, like we believe in the guys that we've selected, and it's just going to take some time. I don't think Kyle has really ever deviated or changed his language about the timeline for this, because they have a collection between Bedard, Nazar, Moore, who just got hurt, the defenseman, where you're seeing some of these guys hit the NHL level, but the vast majority of their prospects are not even turned pro yet. So it is unfortunately, it's going to take a little while longer. I don't think, barring some, big moves in the summer, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team next year either. I hope they're more in like the San Jose category. Yeah. Where San Jose, their guys are kind of there, like Misa was kind of like their last pick. Everyone else is kind of in their pipeline has kind of reached the NHL. So it's not like they have the cavalry coming the way that you could theorize with the Blackhawks. So I think next year is going to be hopefully a growth year. And then, 27, 28 is a playoff year.
Yeah, like I will give Kyle a lot of credit for staying the course. And I would agree with you. His messaging has never changed. Like, you watch every availability he's done, you hear every leak coming out of there. They all are the same. It doesn't seem. And I also will say this, like, yes, Frondell, you have the kid in the KHL, like Kanasoff, or however you pronounce his name.
Kanserov,
I mean, I think you took a swing with Mason West, and that could pay off. The kid at UMass, he's looking like he's moving along, right? It's early on some of these kids. Obviously, Boisvert this year took a step back, and we kind of talked about that. We'll see. He may be a guy who's a better pro than a college player because he's not afraid to fight and do things like that. We're not going to get too into that just because I know people are dying to know what happened, why he didn't play yesterday. I saw Jay Pandolfo's quote, just like everybody else, said that he wasn't a healthy scratch. He just wasn't available. Who knows what that means? I couldn't tell you, but you do have a number of guys. And then look, I think with the defensemen that are playing in the National Hockey League right now, Lev Shunov, Renzel, like, I still think those guys have pretty high ceilings. Like, I think that the fact that they've been up and down, you'd worry if they were never up, right? Like, the fact that they've had the highs, it tells you that it's there. It just, you're going to have to work things out and kind of take your time. I mean, that's look how Vlasic's route was.
Yep. Yeah. And I think you've seen that with, Frank Nazar pre-injury looking great. He's heating up again now, but he's kind of a streaky guy. It feels like his scoring really comes in bunches. So you hope that he can kind of smooth that out, be like a consistent threat, but the work rate's always there. Yeah, and you're right. The defenseman, I think Kaiser has taken a huge step this year. He looks like a top 4 guy. I really love Wyatt Kaiser.
You
right
always
about
did.
Vlasic.
You loved him when he was in college. You were very high on him when he was at Duluth.
Yeah, it's the competitiveness, the 4-way skating. He can do a little bit of everything. I think he's a really good player. So it's like they have their D core. My concern about the D core is that maybe they don't have like that Norris type guy. And maybe they get him in this draft. I don't know. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they took another defenseman. It feels like the only prospect, and I feel like it's early to just write off everyone. But Korchinski's road has been kind of a bumpy one, to say the least, where it's like maybe you should have, in retrospect, left him in the WHL instead of calling him up. The argument was that he was too good for the WHL and he wouldn't develop. I don't know how much I'm buying that, especially in hindsight. But other than that, it's like, yeah, you're right. Like Levshunov, look at his last 3 months, tough, but his October, November were great. And so I'd like to see him and Renzel, finish really strong. You've also seen Louis Crevier, who's a guy who's, he's a monster. He's 6'8" or whatever.
Right? Yeah.
And, late pick. And I don't think anyone thought much of him, but he looks like he could be a very solid third pair penalty kill type of guy. So they're kind of finding guys too. Kanserov was a 2nd-round pick.
Green,
you mentioned
2nd-round pick. Hell of a 2nd-round pick. Ryan Green. I mean,
Ryan Green's a stud.
Pick.
Yeah. And that's a guy who, I mean, you've probably watched, maybe 100 games of his at this point.
Yeah.
But, center, kind of thought of as a 2-way center. And that kind of speaks to the lack of prospects at the high-end level, at the NHL level, where Ryan Green is thrown not as a center, but as a wing on Connor Bedard's wing, and holding in his own in his rookie year, because he has that hockey IQ where he knows how to play with a guy like Connor, because he can just see it. And he's been very impressive. Where he fits in here long term, I'm not sure. I still feel like they need those centers, so I hope that he transitions to that eventually. But he's, for getting his feet wet, top line, original 6 team with an all-star like Connor Bedard, I think he's had a phenomenal year.
One thing that is, again, like a traditional hockey team building kind of thing is like you have a handful of young defensemen, then you get a few grizzled vets to pair them with. And obviously Connor Murphy was there for the bulk of the season, and they picked up a guy like Grizz like before this season just to, kind of eat minutes lower down in the lineup. But like I'm looking at the guys they have under contract or team control for next year, and the oldest one is Vlasic at 24. Are you concerned at all that they could go into a year with a blue line that's too young? Like, is that maybe also an area where maybe they need to add some veteran presences this summer?
Yeah, I think they probably will. Grizzly came in on a tryout contract, and he's been really good. Third pair, he's helped on the power play. Seems like he's a very well-liked guy. So having Grizzly in there has helped. But yeah, I think that's something to be on the lookout for. But at some point, it's just like you got to go with your best 6 guys. And if your best 6 guys are 24 and under, then that's what it is. So if you want to sign like a guy who is a depth piece as a 6 or 7, that's fine. But, I think we're seeing, Del Mastro's up now. And, Korchinski's had some games up. So it's like they have this gluttony of defensive prospects where it's just like, I don't know if I want to take minutes away or games away from a Rinzel or a Levshinov just to have a veteran in there if those 2 guys and the rest of the group are just better than whoever you could find on the market at this point. So I wouldn't hate signing somebody, but it has to be the right kind of guy. And I feel like a lot of times when they've gone after these veterans, it's been mixed results. So I think, I love Connor Murphy. I'm happy for him that he's out of town and we'll get to play some meaningful playoff hockey. But I think he was an important voice in that room, and you hope that the young guys have learned enough lessons, and maybe it is Vlasic is ready to kind of assume that role. I mean, Colby, you know him a lot better than I would. I don't know about his leadership capabilities or anything like that, but he seems like a good guy, and maybe he is just ready to step into that role for the Hawks.
Very well liked, a guy that. You want to, hey, where are you going to lunch? Where are you going to dinner? Like, I want to go with you. Definitely one of those guys. Tyler. Oh, and we didn't even mention Jason Dickinson, who was another important leader in that room. I mean, Jason Dickinson came to Chicago and spread his wings in a way that he never had an opportunity to in other markets. And I'll give Kyle credit. He's done that with a couple of guys, and then he's flipped them for really, really valuable assets. He did it with Lafferty, and then he brought him back. He did it with now with Murphy and Dickinson, although it's a little different because Murphy was signed by Stan Bowman originally in Chicago. And then there's a couple of other guys that like he brought in, he kind of built them up, and then he turned around and got high draft capital for. Tyler, I'm curious, since we brought up
he might have
Connor
just
Murphy,
done it again with Mangiapane.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. Tyler's laughing. Tyler, what has how have you felt those 2 guys have done since being traded from the Blackhawks? Have they fit into what the Oilers were looking for in the early returns?
Yeah, I mean, and you guys are laughing. It's a Stan Bowman special, but then you're heaping all these praise on these guys. I mean, which one is it, boys? Was it a good deal or were these guys good valued leaders? But I think it was kind of like a win-win for both sides, in all honesty, because those 2 so far, it's only been 3 games. They kind of fit exactly what the Oilers need. Like, Murphy's just such a hard-nosed defenseman, and the things that were kind of being told to me and the Oilers fans as like deficiencies in his game, I actually don't even think they're that big of deficiencies. Like, he moves the puck better than I thought he would. He's not elite at it by any stretch, but like he can hold his own. I was told defending off the rush, he's not all that good, but he's had a couple of really strong moments, especially against Vegas, where he made some really nice plays defending off the rush. And Dickinson moves better than I thought he would. Big body, plays pretty physical. Like, no reason through 3 games to be upset at all with what those 2 have brought to the Oilers lineup. Because again, the Oilers can't defend, and those 2 guys, if they can do anything, it's defend.
Yeah, the Blackhawks, sneaky for a bad team, have one of the best penalty kills in the league, and a lot of that was based off of having those 2 guys in critical roles. I think where it turns into a potential bad trade is because your timeline is so short. So it's like if you don't win it in the next year or so with McDavid, then he leaves, and then you don't have any draft picks. So like that's where it gets sticky for the Oilers. But if you're going all in, then, fine. And you think Murphy and Dickinson can get you over the hump. I'm not rooting against you, but it feels like maybe a little bit of a desperation move at this stage.
Yeah, I again, they're in this weird, awkward spot where like McDavid's given them this 2-year timeline, and it's like, well, if you don't go all in, you're going to piss off Connor and he's going to leave. But if you again make those moves, you're emptying the tank for the future, and who knows what you'll look like in 2 years. They're not in a great spot, but I'm just happy Stan didn't go back for thirds. I was dreading like a Ike Howard for Ilya Mikheyev or some shit, and Stan would just keep going. So at least we didn't get that.
I think you could have used Mikheyev too.
I know. I kind of said that in jest. But.
We have an interesting comment in our chat, and it's funny. Johnny and I were recently talking about Brandon Hagel, and the question I proposed to Johnny was, if he stays in Chicago, is he a Canadian Olympic player? And the comment in the chat from Tornsey27 is, the only debatable move Kyle Davidson has made was trading Hagel for 2 firsts. And I'll just jump in first before I kick it to Chief and see what he thinks about that. It's easy to sit here and play Monday morning quarterback on a guy like Brandon Hagel, who has really taken off. And I think a lot of people will say they knew he would. I mean, he was really effective in Chicago. He was one of the only effective players when he got traded. And obviously the team was going in a different direction. But I just don't know if Hagel would have reached the level he was at had he been playing through this rebuild. Now, granted, would it be unbelievable for Connor Bedard to have been riding shotgun with Brandon Hagel the last number of years? Yes, it probably would have. But, I just don't know, about the timing of it. They needed to go out and make some interesting trades and take some risks and move some guys out in order to get to the bottom and have those high draft picks. I don't look at that one because Hagel has been so good as some massive failure, even though, yeah, would you like to have Hagel right now? Sure. But does Hagel become this good if he's not playing in Tampa under that leadership, surrounded by those players in front of John Cooper every night? Does he make the Canadian Olympic team? I don't know the answer. I'm not going to say no, he doesn't, but it's a lot less likely in my opinion, Chief.
Yeah, I agree. And it was one of those things where I think everybody knew what we had in Hagel, maybe not quite to this height. And he got off to a little bit of a slow start in Tampa too, before they really kind of, put him in a better. Yeah, right. And then he really took off, and that's a great team. But it's like, yeah, would he be nice on Bedard's wing? Sure. I don't think they have Connor Bedard if they have Hagel, because it's like you kind of had a decision to make where it's like, are we going to do the retool thing where we're going to build a team that, maybe in theory, if you fill out around the edges the right way and you keep Strome and Doc and DeBrincat and Hagel and Patrick Kane, could you fill out around them to be a wild card team? I think you could have, but then you don't have all these prospects coming. You probably you wouldn't be bad enough to have Connor Bedard unless you really tore it down. So I think I'm comfortable with getting rid of him. I think they got a good package back for him. Jake McCabe, was in that same timeline. And so it was just one of those things where it's like, there's 2 paths here. We can kind of shoot for the middle, or we can sink to the bottom of the pool.
Yeah, ask Flyers fans how they feel about that, about being in the middle, right? I mean, there's a lot of fan bases that yell and scream every day and feel like they're stuck in the middle. So, I mean, there's more of that than the other thing for sure. And I couldn't agree more with you. You have a good relationship with ownership, and I have to give Danny Wirtz, the chairman, I got to give him credit, because not every owner can stomach what they're going through and allowing a general manager to actually put a plan on paper and then see it through. Very few, I would say, actually allow them to do it the right way. To me, it seems like Danny is actually affording Kyle the proper time to rebuild for the long haul. And I'm curious, are you getting a sense of any, are they getting antsy? Are they okay with the plan? Because are there people coming to the games? It seems like people are way more interested in the team this year than in previous years because they've played a better brand of hockey. But what's your sense on all that when it comes to the progress and what the leash still has left on it to see this thing through? Because I like you said earlier, this is moving along. This does not feel stuck. It just, it takes time. It's a large ship. It takes time to turn the ship.
Yeah, I think the fan base, really that game early in the year, it was national TV where they beat the Blues 8-4. And there was a scrum at the end, and Nazar pops out of the scrum and he does, the hair celly, and Bedard was on fire to start the year. I think that really energized the fan base, and then the injuries took some of the wind out of the sails. As far as Danny Wirtz, it's been kind of a tumultuous run for him between the whole TV situation, the broadcast situation, which obviously are, two different things, but they've had a lot going on there, and it hasn't always been smooth sailing, but he hasn't allowed the business side of things to really impact his trust in Kyle. I think you'll see Kyle get an extension here pretty soon. And I think, he has tremendous faith in him, and he's willing to stay the course. And I think there's been enough kind of positivity this year, and you could feel it turning. You can kind of feel it turning. Now, I don't know if they become a cup team or anything like that, but I would be shocked if this team isn't very, very competitive in two years, and then hopefully for the long run. So there's still work to be done. There's still, development and draft picks and, filling out the edges of the roster, but I think that they're in a good place. And I think Danny has been exceptionally patient and rightfully so. So, Kyle was in here. He's like, I can't remember if this was this conversation or not, but he's like, I got the best boss in the world. And Danny lets him do his thing and doesn't meddle, but wants to know and ask good questions. And I think he's a very curious guy, and Danny really cares. I think that's the thing. It's like he saw how his grandfather ran it, and it was not great to be a Blackhawks fan. And then his dad, Rocky, was a hero here and still is. And so I think there's pressure to live up to that. And rather than just try to be like reactionary and be like, this is taking too long, he's willing to take the long course. And I really hope that it pays off for him personally, because I don't think it's been easy. And there's been a lot of change here, and not all of it has been positive. As watching it as a fan, that is. But he's really kind of held a steady ship, and I really do hope he gets rewarded for that.
I could say this before we kind of let you go here. The treatment, and I've said this before, the Wirtz family treated me and my family. It's just, I to this day can't believe how well they treated us and how much they cared about us while we were there. And even when I was hired, just the carpet that they rolled out and the care, and I don't think it was special. This is how they operate, and they rolled it out and made sure we were comfortable and made sure we had help finding a home to live in. And when my wife was pregnant, they made sure everything was handled at the hospital. And when we had my daughter, they went so above and beyond, and it was Rocky and Danny. And it was, my experience with Rocky was just awesome. Nothing but unbelievable and friendly and fun and caring. And again, my experience, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Danny is a good human being at his heart. Probably
it's like, I get engaged, and one of the first texts that comes in is from Danny Wirtz, so it's just I'm a blogger on the internet. So, I think he cares about people, and he wants people to have a good life and be happy. And he likes to see people be successful. And I hope that he gets to experience I hope that all comes back to him.
Yeah.
That's really what I want.
I'd like to see, at the end of the day, I'd be happy to see Danny Wirtz and Kyle Davidson with a big silver cup over their head at some point. I think I would be happy to see that. So you've got 5 draft picks in the first 2 rounds this year, and there is 5 first-round picks over the course of the next 3 seasons, and more cap space than you could know what to do with. So the good news is Kyle's been disciplined, but the other good news would seemingly be that he has every opportunity to strike when that opportunity comes. Stay there, be patient. When Brady Tkachuk becomes available, when Adam Fox becomes available, I'm not going to say it because Tyler's here, but when that other guy might become available, strike.
Matthews, is that who you're talking about?
Matthews, exactly.
Yeah, Matthews. Yeah. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, I've been on the record saying I don't buy into the Connor McDavid timeline.
Yeah.
I think he stays an Edmonton Oiler, my personal opinion. But go ahead, Chief.
No, yeah, I think, and that's the thing. I was doing the radio show on ESPN with Pat Boyle, and we had Saravalli on around the deadline, your guy. And I was like, I use the analogy where it's like, I don't want to be just building and end up as the Minnesota Wild. And when I say that, I mean a team that's in the playoffs every year and loses in the first, maybe the second round. And he's like, well, they're a Stanley Cup contender. And it's like, well, yeah, right, because they just went out and got Quinn Hughes. So it's like, I hope that they have the ability to like really build this. And I think Billy Guerin's done an amazing job there, where they have the superstar, they have, a cadre of really good defensemen, but it's like they got the goalies, which that's another thing, Kyle. I feel like it's almost the Spencer Knight, Seth Jones thing. Like people,
unbelievable trade.
He's just part of this, and like that was a great trade, and he got it. I don't know if that first round pick will be this year because of the top 10 protection, but it's like that was a great trade even without getting that first round pick. So you have your goalie. They're in a great spot, but at some point, I do feel like you got to find a way to strike, like you said, and get that superstar that takes you from being a team that's in the playoffs to like the Minnesota Wild are now. Because without Quinn Hughes, they're still a very good team. They probably don't have legitimate Stanley Cup aspirations. Like they needed that star, that number one D-man. And I hope that the Hawks are able to make a move like that in the future if it doesn't come from within. And maybe it does. Maybe they find that guy in this draft. Maybe Frondell is Sasha Barkov. Who knows? It's too early on a lot of these guys. Most of these guys are still 18, 19, 20 years old. And it's like, waves. There's going to be
waves coming. You have waves. Yeah. Like the first wave is there. You still have waves 2, 3, and 4 that are already in the system. You're not waiting to see who they are. So I believe that the waves are coming.
Yeah. And like Mason West, you mentioned earlier, is a great example where it's that kid gets drafted, goes back to high school, wins a state championship as a quarterback. Now he's in the USHL. Then he's going to go to Michigan State. He's probably going to do at least 2 years at Michigan State. Then maybe a year in Rockford. We're looking at 29-30 for his first full-time contribution to the Chicago Blackhawks if things work out. So it takes a long time. But you're right. The waves, the cavalry is coming. It's just a matter of how high is up, and can you find that established guy, that star that becomes available one way or another to make you a real cup contender.
Yeah. Mason West has 18 points in 28 games this year with Fargo since leaving high school. Remember, he joined Fargo while the season was already going. So he goes from high school hockey to the USHL. We know how hard of a league the USHL is. That is the league that puts hair on your chest and gets you ready for Division I hockey. There's plenty of, data that shows that. And then you're right. He'll go to Michigan State. He's on a slow plan like Rinzel. Right.
Yep.
And so you see the ceiling. Chief, thanks for coming on this morning. Good check-in about the Blackhawks. Like I said, not, probably not getting the credit, in my opinion, that Kyle would deserve on a national level, because I feel like a lot of these moves have kind of flown under the radar because the team hasn't had sustained winning success. So kind of good to get your point on, your point of view on it, especially after you just had that sit down with KD here not long ago.
Yeah, and hopefully it's a fun end to the year, because Frondell should probably be up in a couple of weeks when his Swedish team's eliminated. Maybe you see Boyver here. Maybe Kantsrov and KHL get knocked out. So you'll see, I don't know if they'll be in the NHL next year, but they'll get a little taste this year, and it'll make it fun and exciting way to end the year. And then hopefully we kind of continue. Everybody takes a step in the summer. And then maybe you are kicking around that wild card spot next year if everybody can stay healthy. That's been that really derailed the season there. So I think they got the right coach, the right GM, the right owner, the right superstar. That's a great way to start.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
Boys.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
Good to see you.
Yep. Nice little Blackhawks check in there, Tyler.
Yeah, let me make a connection between Chicago and St. Albert, where I'm from, just a little bit north of Edmonton. There are 4 rinks in our town. 3 of them are named after former NHLers. You got Mark Messier Arena, Jerome McGinley, and Troy Murray Arena. And I've gotten to know a little bit of his family over the last little bit here, but condolences to Troy Murray. That's a massive loss for the little hockey community I'm from, and then obviously the one in Chicago as well.
Yeah, no, we talked a little bit about Troy yesterday. I mean, I had the fortune of working with him, Tyler. He was such a good human being. Forget hockey, like just salt of the earth. I mean, truly, truly salt of the earth. So always good to hear his name. And yes, his memory will definitely continue to live on. So, all right, we're going to pivot a little bit here, Tyler, and we are going to bring on our favorite insider in David Pagnotta. And first, I will remind you that this segment is brought to you by JP Weisers. No matter where your team sits this season, watch the game with your crew makes everything better. The wins feel bigger. The rivalries hit harder. As the official whiskey of the NHL, JP Weisers is all about those moments that matter from October through June, the rituals, the midweek matchups, and the regional rivalries that bring friends together. Because when you get a crew together for game night, that's a W. This season, fans can look forward to a limited edition products and plenty more from JP Weisers. To stay up to date, visit jpweisers.com, subscribe to the JP Weisers newsletter, and for the latest limited edition drops, products, and more, must be legal drinking age, and please enjoy responsibly. So, Tyler, you're in Canada, so you can drink legally. But DP, early morning for you. Are you in LA right now, or are you at least in the East?
No, I'm in the East. I'm
all right.
Yeah, I'm in Toronto. This is Ty. Good job, buddy. You're a little earlier out there in Alberta.
Colby saying I'm in Canada so I can drink legally, implying that I'm not 21 years old, Colby? I'm almost 30.
I know, but you just look so young and like your skin is so beautiful. And so I just, wanted to give you a compliment and say how much younger you look than your age, Tyler.
Thanks, buddy.
That was supposed to be a compliment. David, I know exactly who gave you that hat, too. I know exactly who handed you or sent you that hat. I know exactly who gave you that. But that is not why we brought you on today. We brought you on today because we wanted to talk about, anything that has happened over the last 2 weeks. And the guy I want to start with is Nick Schmaltz and his big extension yesterday. The press availability from Bill Armstrong was actually phenomenal. The story he told about his fiance, like eyeing him up when he scored the goal. I don't know if you guys saw that. Vic, you don't have that clip by any chance, do you? DP, what's up? Go ahead.
What's up? First of all, you look a little different than the trade deadline show. So I missed that look.
I was told I had to dress up.
Where's the fucking Rolex, Colby? Come on.
Yeah.
Told I had to dress up.
No, that was sharp. It was sharp. Nick Schmaltz will be, he can buy a new Rolex right now with that new deal. It's funny that kind of happened relatively quickly in the grand scheme of things because Bill Armstrong had chatted with his camp and they kind of went back and forth for a little bit and said, you know what, let's pause this and push this till the end of the season. And then right after the Olympic break is when things really picked up because, again, the plan was for those negotiations to continue and carry out after the regular season. But, with the way he's playing, with how the free agent pool is looking, they're like, you know what, let's just bang this out and get this done. And he gets the deal. He wanted, a higher AAV. Both sides compromised basically on this one. So he wanted more cash. They wanted shorter term. And they, met in the middle on this deal. So good bit of business by them. Get him in for a solid number and what he's capable of producing at that number is solid for the team side. But again, getting the overall number was important to him. They spread it out via term and both sides really happy to get this done. And July 1 looks a little more bleak for the rest of us.
Well, yeah, and we'll get to that in a minute. But maybe one more quickly just on Utah. Like the deal makes sense for, like you said, both sides. Like he's getting $64 million in his jeans here, and Utah gets another guy signed to kind of that $7-8 million range, and they still have a ton of cap space. And even with the Mackenzie Weegar deal, they still have a ton of assets here. Is the expectation in Utah that, yes, Schmaltz is another piece to add to that core, but this isn't like all right, now things are set up and we can just watch this team go? Like, are they going to keep being aggressive here in the next sort of, 8 to 12 months, I guess?
100%. And if it's not just going out to trade for, a top line caliber player, I fully expect them to be in the Alex Tuch race if he hits July 1. A lot of teams will be, because he's the only guy effectively that can produce at that level that's going to hit the open market. But they'll be fully engaged in that conversation if he's available. And if not, they're going to revert back to the trade market and see who they can bring in, what type of, first line caliber player that they can acquire. I anticipate them circling back on Robert Thomas to see, has the price changed? Has it dropped? Otherwise, they'll fish for somebody else, but they are going to be very aggressive. They feel their time is now in terms of pouncing, but at the same time, they don't want to rush. They feel the time is now in terms of going after that, these caliber players, but they don't want to give up the younger guys. Like they've got the leading points per game guy in the CHL in each of the three leagues, the Q, the O, and the W. Their prospect. Yeah. Like they have that. They have Simashev. They have a very, very deep top tier talent pool. And they feel they want to add, they want to keep this going. Ryan Smith and company are not afraid to spend the money. And between now and the kids coming up, like I spoke with Bill Armstrong a few weeks ago, right after the Olympic break. And he said that, as much as they feel like now's the time to pounce, they also know their best team is ahead of them because of the kids that they have in the system. So once those guys are ready to join this group, they're going to be that much more dangerous. And that's just going to prolong the longevity of how good they're going to be, because they're going to be good for a long time.
So I did see that on Twitter yesterday, and it just seems like every time Ryan Smith is in public, you're like, wow, that guy is an awesome owner. I see him, people tweeted him and they're like, hey, I'm having a hard month. Like, I'd love to go to a Utah game or whatever. And he's like, DM me, I got you. And he goes on Pat McAfee show. He just seems like a guy who understands the moment, and he just wants to take care of everybody under him. And so that seems like a guy where you're like, I want to go play for that ownership. A lot of times that's probably not something you're thinking about. And for him, it's like, I want to go play for that guy. And he obviously is wanting to create that atmosphere. And it seems very much like he is.
Oh, without question. Like, this guy said, I want my practice facility done, excuse me, for the start of the season. And they started building at the end of last season. So within that summer months, he not only was able to get it done, he spent the money to make sure it was going to get done. And I just remember being at the media tour, and Clayton Keller went the day before to go check out the new facility. And he was just saying how blown away he was by A, the fact that it was done, but B, just how incredible it is. So they're going through renovations again within the arena as soon as their season wraps, which by all accounts will be at the earliest May. So, and then it's going to be ready for the start of the season next season. So this is a guy that's not afraid to spend the money, and will make sure that he's spending it so that whatever needs to be done gets done in the time in which he wants it done, and their group wants it done. So that word is spreading. The buzz around Salt Lake City and the Utah Mammoth across the NHL has started to spread exponentially in terms of a destination for guys and their families. And they get taken care of on and off the ice. And that's the reputation that they've already built in, less than 2 years. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to jump in here real quick, and I'm going to read you something. And then I want to pick your brain on it, because we are in a copycat environment in the National Hockey League, and general managers want to see what does that person do, which will inform what I will do with this person or player. So Looking at Nick Schmaltz, right? He's played 653 games in the National Hockey League, and he has 482 points. His last couple of seasons, 61 points, 63 points. This year, he's on pace for about 70, right? Something like that, maybe low 70s, mid 70s. There's another player whose contract is expiring at the end of this year, and he is being talked about as the number one UFA on the market. He's a guy we thought at times this year could be traded. We weren't sure how it was going to play out. He still remains with his team. I'm going to read you his stat line. He's played 600 games, and he has 439 points. So you're talking about two players with very similar career point totals. The last couple of seasons, 59, 67. This season looks to be around 70 points if he stays on his path. Nick Schmaltz signed for 8x8, okay? This other player who plays in the East, he's a UFA. How could this affect Alex Tuch's contract negotiations? Because our chat is wondering, and I don't know who put this in the chat. It's farther up, so I apologize that I'm not attributing this to you. But how does this affect that contract? Because we were hearing like $12 million a year for Alex Tuch would potentially be the starting number.
Well, I don't know if it's going to go that high. Now, if he hits July 1, sometimes some people can't, they get in their own way. They can't control themselves, so they'll throw the extra money. I'd be a little bit surprised. The number that I'm hearing on Tuch is hovering around $10.5 million per year. Seems to be, what he's been looking for. I don't think this is going to affect it too much because, again, there was give and take on both sides on the deal. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys. It's either a no-tax state or it's a very minimal rate.
Very minimal
okay.
in Utah. Yes, like little to none.
Yeah. So that plays a little bit of a factor as well. Within the AAV being $8 million, whereas
4.5%
in New York,
just so you know, 4.5%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and New York is considerably higher than that.
Yes.
So that takes a little bit into the equation.
11% in New York.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So little bit of a gap. But with the capabilities that he brings, and like, so the way that this is viewed, or at least, I guess the way that the market is viewing it is that Nick Schmaltz, while he's playing first line right now in Utah, is a perfect second line center in terms of capabilities, output, what he's doing. Whereas Alex Tuch is considered first line caliber power forward, which is somewhat rare in the NHL these days anyway. It's not how I view him, but that's how some other people view him. So that's why the number is that much higher. Now, the fact that he's the top dog in the UFA class, he's going to get more, but how much more? Does he hit his 10.5? Does somebody go to 11? We'll have to wait and see. Clearly, Buffalo has not been, wanting to hit that number. And that's where, that's why he's still available that's why it looks like he's still going to be available July 1. So comparison-wise, career-wise, trajectory-wise, they're on a very even playing field. But all accounts, Alex Tuch's going to be making a little bit more. To what degree, again, we'll have to wait and see. And because of how shallow the pool is, there's an opportunity for him to definitely cash in on some decent bucks here. And again, there's going to be 25 teams that'll push for him, give or take. So he'll have options without a doubt.
Well, and the reason we kind of got to rewire our brains a little bit here with how we view these markets, because again, for that flat cap era, everybody had assets, nobody had cap space. And now we'll get to a point where, teams have assets, but it's harder to trade for guys the cap space too. Like everyone's got it. So you might just have some teams this year who sit there and go like, you know what, we have $30 million in cap space for next season, even more coming down the line. The cap should keep shooting up, all that stuff. They might sit there and go like, you know what, if we don't get Alex Tuch, we're not going to get anybody on the trade market. Like, fuck it, we're giving this guy $12 million, and like, who cares?
Yeah. And the way the cap's going up, Alan Walsh tweeted last week, I think it was last week or end of last week, whatever it was, that in 3 years we're going to be around 123 million. Well, I mean, that shouldn't be too shocking considering the trajectory we're on. We're going up 8.5 this summer. It'll be at 104 next season. We're going up 9.5 the year after that. We're going to be at 113.5 million in 2 years. So for it to go to another, 8-9 million to increase to that point to get to 123 in 3 years, it's following the same track. And with the cap going up 8.5 next year, some teams will go, you know what, I'll just add 2 million to that, and we can go after Alex Tuch for 10.5, and it's only costing us, a little bit less now. Like teams are going to allocate those funds, and this is also why we're seeing, guys re-sign with their clubs, because their teams have that capability. They have the financial capability to not only do it, to commit now, because they know how the next few years are going to play out. What I hope that, and what I think, and a lot of people believe will happen, is that teams will have to revert to the trade market. And I say hope because it's more exciting for us to be talking about these teams that are making these bolder type of moves and these types of trades that we're not necessarily used to. We will probably start seeing, and we saw this in the 90s, we saw this going into the early 2000s, but more so in the 90s, where we saw big names getting swapped out for one another. There was a Ron Francis and Keith Primo type deal at one point, things of that nature. We're going to see those types of deals, going down again. And the Quinn Hughes type of trade is also something that we're going to start to see perhaps a little more frequently, with guys that have a little bit of term or at least a little bit of controllability, and moving them out for significant assets and young pieces, because teams can't rely on the free agent market to fill, the holes that they want, especially at the top tier level. Like you look at the free agent class right now, you've got some good complementary pieces, some second line guys, a lot of mid-six type of guys, number, 2 D, second pair type D that are going to be available. You still have quality that's there. The quantity of that quality and the level of quality is kind of middle pack to a certain extent. And that's no disrespect to these guys. It's just you need these types of players to win, but it's not what we've seen in the past, and it's probably not what we're going to start to see again in the future. So that's why teams are going to revert to the trade market to fill those voids, and we'll see how it happens this summer. That's why this trade deadline, there was a lot of foundational groundwork done on some of these deals that I think, not just with Montreal, with other teams, that I think carries over into June around the draft in July.
Yeah, you think we'll go ahead, Tyler. Yeah, no, you. Go ahead.
I wanted to follow up on that point, because I get a bit of a chuckle here when I hear these GMs come out and be like, oh, I got real close to something, but that darn deadline just swooped in. Like, they all knew when the deadline was coming, Dave. It wasn't a surprise. Like, how do you not, if you're that close on a deal, how the fuck do you not get it done?
Well, with Montreal specifically, this was something that kind of crept up on them in terms of, whoever this player was that Kent Hughes categorized as a significant deal. And I believe it to be a forward. And I've said this all week. I don't think it's Matthew Nyes, even though the noise in Toronto seems to suggest it. I don't think that was the guy. I know they talked, but I don't think that was the guy that Hughes was referring to. And I don't think it was Robert Thomas either, or Jordan Kyrou. So whoever the hell this guy is that they were pursuing, I think it just came about at some point last week. And some of these deals, when you're talking about these caliber players, especially the ones with term that are controllable, those trades typically can take months. Some teams knock on a door for a couple of years before that team decides, okay, that player is expendable. And I don't think it's going to go in that direction. But just the fact that it took a few days to start the process, you didn't have to make that deal now. And I think that's why the Habs are comfortable and some of these other teams are comfortable in doing this a little bit later. Now, again, I think that'll shift because I think the mindset will shift towards, this is our only option. Let's do this now. Because keep in mind, even the playoff with the playoff salary cap numbers and the changes that we saw in the CBA, a lot of these guys are still adjusting internally to see how they can make these moves happen in relative short order. And again, I don't think this is just Montreal guys. Like there were teams that were looking to make moves, Utah included, Seattle as well. Ottawa was trying to bring in a forward, a top 6 guy, winger. Like a lot of these will be reconvened in the summer. And that's why I think / hope that draft time in Buffalo and around July 1 will provide some pretty spicy, things to talk about.
Yeah, and I think a lot of GMs, from what I've heard, are starting to look at some of these players and they're almost looking at like an average cost, right? Okay, if I have this player that I signed 3 years ago and he's so below what market value is now, I can afford to give this guy the extra $1 million over here, because when you look at the production of them together, it averages your cost lower. It's like when you're trading stocks or you're looking at your retail portfolio and you're going through all the different SKUs you have, whatever it may be, you look at bringing those numbers down in any way you can. And because we're having such an aggressive rise in the cap, you're going to have these like crazy big Vinny Trocheck. We talked about this Vinny Trocheck at $5.6 million in 2 years. It's going to look almost funny when you look at it on Puckpedia, on the cap chart, because you're going to be like, wait a sec, his production for that, and you're paying a guy on your third line $8 million and he's only doing this. But when you average them together, you're like, oh, wow, this is actually a great deal, because this guy was such a good fit for our roster. Yeah, we had to overpay for him, but that's why I kind of said with the Bill Guerin thing, I'm like, you know what? I would overpay and give up that extra first round pick, give up that extra prospect, because the value you're getting on the other side outweighs that in the money that you're saving. It's not quite a Moneyball philosophy, but it's like a stock trading philosophy of getting that. I do it with Bitcoin. Every time I see Bitcoin with a 6 next to it, I'm buying Bitcoin. Every time I see it drop down, like that's just trying to draw that cost down. So I think GMs are operating like that right now.
Without question. And you look at some of these teams, I'm going to go back to the Habs for a second. You look at what Caulfield's making, what Hudson's deal looks like. Suzuki.
How good do they look
right now? Slavkovsky. Yeah, exactly. Like in 3 years, halfway through their contracts, those are sweetheart deals. Those are second line, third line type players. You just said, like, we're going to see third line guys making $8 million in 3 years. That's just we have to get used to, and GMs and teams have to get used to it too. And it's a slow process, but it's getting there. These numbers are going to look ridiculous in a few years when guys are making, 15 million, 16 million as first line players in 3 years. Whereas the Habs are going to put out a first line that doesn't even have a guy making $10 million on it.
Yeah. Oh, well, listen, interesting times ahead. That's all I could say. Interesting times. Whether it'll be fireworks or we'll be pulling our hair out, it remains to be seen, because we as the NHL and owner, they do have a way of sucking the fun out of things. They're very good at that. They're very good at that.
Sadly. Like, remember last summer, it wasn't just us trying to hype it up. It was like teams telling us that we're going to be aggressive. We're making moves this summer. And fuck all happened. So I'm hoping that that's not the case right now. It doesn't sound like it's going to be, because I think everyone's, again, just reacclimating themselves and understanding how the market's going to look like from now on. But we won't know until June.
Vic is hitting us right now in our group text saying, finally, the Riley and Nurse contracts will be steals. Eventually, those will be steals. Keep waiting. No. We'll have to wait a while longer for that, Vic.
Yeah. I mean, Morgan, look, at $7.5 million, Morgan Riley as a number 2 or a second pair D.
I agree.
That's value.
Yeah.
Plus you're also lowering his minutes. So that's less responsibility there. It's even more value. Nurse 925.
That's going to
wait a little more on that one.
That's going to take a few more CBA. That's going to take a few more CBAs to look like a team friendly deal. DP, thanks for coming on with us this morning. We always appreciate the insight. Great job on trade deadline. It was fun just to see you in the camera the whole time, just to see the insanity going on and all the you're like Ari Gold with the double phones, and you need an assistant. That's what we need to get for you next year.
There was, let's see if we can make that happen. That was my hands were hurting. It was not to sound like whatever, but towards the end of it, it was like, okay, shit, I can't wait for this to be done. It was a fun day.
Yeah, you did a great job. You did too, Tyler. You guys were 2 stars of the show. So DP, you're the best. Thanks for coming on this morning. We'll catch up with you in a couple weeks. All right.
You got it. Take care, boys.
I saved all my good questions for when he's on DFO Live in 2 hours.
Yeah, you were catching strays there via Edmonton. Hey, I don't know if you've heard, everyone's trying to put Edmonton down right now, and I've held the line. I have held the line. Yeah, I might take a shot here and there, Tyler, but I have learned my lesson. I am not turning my back on the Edmonton Oilers. If they lose or they flake out early, oh well, so be it. But I am not doing it this year. I'm not doing it. Every time they get into a playoff series this year and Johnny asked me for a prediction, no matter what I think is going to happen, I'm picking the Edmonton Oilers. Full stop.
You know what else I think is kind of funny? And listen, I don't always need to be on here talking Oilers or whatever, but every problem that people point at and pick apart with the Edmonton Oilers, that same problem exists for the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas is worse when it comes to save percentage at 5-on-5. Vegas is worse at keeping pucks out of their net, at least over the last 15, 20 games they have been. Everyone laughs at what a miserable regular season it's been for Edmonton. Vegas has 29 wins in 65 games. The only reason the Golden Knights are in the playoff conversation is because they've mooched up enough loser points throughout the year. So, I don't know. I think they're in a fine spot to get out of the Pacific Division here, and give me a Western Conference Final Oilers team against whoever from the Central that had to beat the shit out of each other for 7 games in 2 straight series to get there. You never know what can happen leading up through 2 rounds of the playoffs. So I'm chilling. I got my feet kicked up. The Oilers are going to win the division or some crazy shit like that down the stretch. It's fine.
All right. Well, we're going to see the year of the Tristan Jarry playoff run. Or maybe Connor Ingram, if he's alive after, getting trucked by Nathan McKinnon.
I was going to say Tristan Jarry might just have the best seat in the world for an Oilers playoff run, and that'll be kind of cool for him.
Yeah, if Ingram's alive.
If Ingram is alive.
One other thing I just wanted to bring up that I saw on social media, New York Marines sent it to me. I saw it. Vic, I didn't send this to you, so don't worry about the video. But, we all knew the story that happened in Rhode Island a couple of weeks back where, there was a violent incident. Somebody, there was a family thing, and the guy brought the gun into the arena and he shot his family members while the high school game was going on. I mean, it was one of the most horrible scenes that we have seen that have affected our game in, quite some time. So that was a couple of weeks ago. And the hockey player and the son of the family who lost his family members last night in double overtime scores a breakaway goal, Colin Doran, to win the game and take his team onto the finals, wearing his family's initials on his jersey. You could see how emotional the moment was when he scored. He put his hands on his head and he looked up to the ceiling. I mean, look, what a horrible tragedy for that young man and his family. But to see him back out on the ice, and you're on it, Vic, and here's the goal right here. For those of you audio only, has the breakaway, and just the moments after he scored the goal, the reaction of the fans, his teammates, again, just seeing him, Colin, back on the ice after such a tragedy and seeing how the hockey community rallies around people that deal with tragedy. It never ceases to amaze me just how tremendous our community is. All of you in the chat are part of that community. Tyler, you are as well. We say this all the time. We are really lucky that we have a great community of people, the players, the fans. Yes, there's always BS. There's always, headaches. There's always people that are nasty and negative. But in general, I grew up in hockey rinks. I know you did, Tyler. You're in rinks all the time now. It's such a beautiful community that we have, hockey. And here, north of the border, Europe, it doesn't matter. It just seeing that kind of stuff, like, I don't know, Tyler, it put a smile on my face and, really just kind of lit up a good moment in such a tragic situation.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of nailed it with like his reaction. You could tell he was almost in disbelief after he scored, and to see his teammates kind of all jumping on him, there was definitely some extra emotion and all that. So, I mean, again, it's a terrible, terrible story, and an overtime winner doesn't make it any better. But at least for him, it gave him a moment, it gave him a night of some amount of happiness.
Tyler, hockey is such a great distraction. I mean, it really is. I mean, for any of you who have dealt with tragedy in your life, having hockey to just lean on, it's gotten me through the hardest tragedy that I've dealt with in my life just recently. It's always there for you. It's why, when I dealt with that, I was right back on the show Monday morning. I wanted to come and be around everybody, and I coached that weekend, and you just want to get back out there. That's why players, when they lose a family member, a lot of the time, like, you see them playing that night, the next day, like, they just want to be with their family, their community, and with the hockey world, Tyler.
Yeah, I think that's really, really well said, Colb. We got a little bit of breaking news here if you want to wrap up the show with it. This coming from our guy, Dave Pagnotta. The NHL has announced a change in the Senators' penalty for the Dadonov Vegas trade. Instead of having to outright forfeit their first-round pick in this year's draft, they will instead be picking 32nd overall. They cannot trade the pick and will also pay a fine of $1 million Canadian, which works out to about $3.72 US. But the NHL is doing a little course correction there on the penalty. Originally, the Senators had to forfeit their first round pick this year because they didn't properly check with Dadonov and his no trade clause before trading him to Vegas. Then the deal got nixed, all of that stuff. Or trading him to Anaheim, whatever it was, and the deal got nixed. But instead of forfeiting it, they're now going to pick 32nd overall.
Why not go to Anaheim? Like, why would you not want to go there? Weird, look how exciting Anaheim looks right now, right? Thanks for breaking it on the show, DP. Would he wait till he got off the air so he could break it on Twitter? That's kind of messed up. We're gonna have to give him a little bit of shit about that. But thanks for being on top of that. And I know you'll have DP on the show with you, Daily Faceoff live at noon, coming up here in about an hour and 50 minutes. And so that's about it for us today. Make sure you give us a like on today's episode. We obviously miss our man Johnny, but he'll be back next week. And it is Thursday, and I know I am not the normal betting guy on this show. So, of course, Johnny sent us his weekly special parlay brought to us by our friends at Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it is never ordinary at Bet365, a great partner for us across the different channels of the Daily Faceoff and the Nation Network. And this week's parlay, Hot Sabres and Cold Flames. We're taking the Buffalo Sabres on the money line, the New Jersey Devils on the money line. They play Calgary. They're a plus 177. So you get that bet boost brought to you by Morning Cuppa Hockey. A $10 wager brings you back $27.77. So you do the math here. If you want to throw 100 Canadian down, like Tyler said, that's like 25 cents American. So get involved, get the parlay going, show Bet365 that you actually care what Johnny has to say with his bets. So they keep being a part of our show, which we are very, very grateful for. Tyler, anything else you want to get off your chest today? I know we got you up nice and early. I know we don't have garbage time on this show, but is there any final words or thoughts that you may have for us?
No, I save all the good stuff for DFO Live and Oilers Nation every day.
All right, perfect. So you'll be able to catch Tyler on DFO Live at noon, Oilers Nation every day. That's pretty much just on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week over on Oilers Nation. Tyler literally does not sleep. I do believe the sheet will be back today. I know yesterday they did not have a show, so expect to see the sheet back today at 1 p.m. With Jeff, with Zach, and with their different guests that they bring on. This will be our last show of the week for Morning Cuppa Hockey, as we like to take our Fridays off. Tyler, yes, go ahead.
But tomorrow you're doing DFO Live with me.
I will be co-hosting DFL Live with Tyler at noon tomorrow. So you're not quite done with me for the week. So Tyler, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for filling in. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. Let's push those subscriber numbers. Don't forget to go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Get your automatic audio download set and leave us a review on the audio platforms. I ask every day. You all ignore me every day. One of these days, you're not going to ignore me, and you'll leave some reviews on the audio downloads for us. Leave comments on the YouTube stream when we're done. If we see anything important there, we could talk about it on DFL Live tomorrow at noon. With that, we hope everybody has a great day. Tyler and I will see you tomorrow at noon. Johnny and I will see you Monday at 9 a.m. Have a good long weekend, everyone.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to Morning Cuppa Hockey here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And don't forget, we've got more great hockey content every day. You can catch DFO Live at noon and stick around for the sheet with Jeff Marek at 1 p.m. right here on Daily Faceoff. Until then, keep your coffee hot and your takes hotter.